Hello everyone, welcome to chapter 9, Decision Making. In this chapter, we will learn how we make decisions to make a purchase. As you know, some purchase decisions are more important than others. The amount of effort we put into each decision making is different than each other. Sometimes the decision making process is almost automatic. We seem to make snap judgments based on little information. However, at other times, it resembles a full time job. A person may literally spend days or weeks looking over an important purchase, such as looking for a new home, a car, or even an iPhone versus a Samsung Galaxy. Part of what we are going to discuss in this chapter already is familiar ground to you. In chapter 4, we reviewed approaches to learning that link options to outcomes, where over time we come to link certain choices to good or bad results. In chapter 5, we talked about effective decision making, how our emotional responses drive many of our choices. And in chapter 8, we reviewed three hierarchies of effect, or the sequence of steps involving thinking, feeling, and eventually doing. These ideas really relate to types of decision making because they remind us that depending on the situation and the importance of what we are dealing with, our choices can be dominated by hot emotions, cold information processing, or even lukewarm snap decisions. When you look at the slide, you see three buckets of consumer decision making: cognitive, habitual, and effective. Cognitive bucket is our deliberate, rational, sequential choices. Habitual decision making is our behavioral, unconscious, automatic choices. And effective decision making is our emotional, instantaneous choices when it comes to purchase decision. We will learn today the cognitive decision making process, habitual decision making process, and effective decision making process. The consumer decision process model, which is also the cognitive decision making process, represents the steps that consumers go through before, during, and after making purchases. Because marketers often find it difficult to determine how consumers make their purchasing decisions, it is useful for us to break down the process into a series of steps and examine each of one of them individually. We will start with problem recognition. Problem recognition happens when consumer recognizes a need or a problem. Problem recognition, as I said, is the first step in the consumer decision making process. It can occur when a consumer's state of being declines, which then triggers a desire to return to normalcy, or when a consumer recognizes an ideal state he or she wishes to achieve. When a consumer recognizes a decline in the actual state, it's called need recognition. When the consumer recognizes an opportunity to the ideal state, when the ideal state moves upward, then this is called opportunity recognition. The consumer decision process, as we discussed many times, which I want to repeat here again, begins with when consumers recognize they have an unsatisfied need and they would like to go from their actual needy state to a different desired state. The greater the discrepancy between these two states, the greater the need recognition will be. For example, your stomach tells you that you are hungry and you would rather not have that particular feeling. If you are only a little hungry, you may pass it off and decide to eat later. But if your stomach is groveling and you cannot concentrate, the need, which is the difference between your actual state, hungry state, and your desired, not hungry state, is greater, and you will want to eat immediately to get to your desired state. Let's look at the problem recognition figure 9.3. So the figure illustrates, as you see, the two causes of problem recognition. When the person experiences a decline in the quality of his actual state, it is called need recognition. When the person experiences an increase in the desire for his ideal state, it is called opportunity recognition. When the ideal state and actual state are in the parallel, there is no problem. There is no problem recognition. The second step after a consumer recognizes a problem is to search for information about the various options that exist to satisfy that need. The length and intensity of the search are based on the degree of perceived risk associated with purchasing the product or service. You might remember the perceived risks. We have 5 different risks that comes with a purchase, and we covered them in our previous chapters. If the way, for example, your hair is cut is important to your appearance and self-image, you may engage in an involved search for the right salon and stylist. Alternatively, an athlete looking for a short buzz cut might go to the closest, most convenient, and cheapest barber shop. So the decision, the degree of perceived risk associated with the purchasing of a service, like in this example of haircut, actually determines how much effort we are going to put on looking for alternatives in information search and making our information search. Once we know we have a problem, we search out how we can solve the problem. These searches will typically take place before purchase, which we call it pre-purchase stage. However, many people just enjoy searching information and they conduct ongoing searches even if a product is not immediately forthcoming. Search engines have made vast amounts of information available to us as we search out product information online. We may rely on cyber mediaries to help narrow and filter the options that are available. Intelligent agents are sophisticated software programs that we use for collaborative filtering technologies to learn from past user behavior in order to recommend new purchases. Like when we shop from Amazon and when we buy a product, Amazon shows us what other users have bought, what we would be interested in, what is recommended to us because we bought a product. So these are all called collaborative filtering technologies that is learned by algorithms from past users' behavior and shows us recommendations for us to make new purchases. Regardless of the required search level, there are two key types of information search: internal and external. In an internal search for information, the buyer examines his or her own memory and knowledge about the product or service gathered through past experiences. For example, let's say we have Katie as a scenario. Every time Katie craves for dessert, she heads straight to the Cheesecake Factory. In making this choice, she relies on her memory of past experiences when she has eaten at this restaurant. In an external search for information, the buyer seeks information outside his or her personal knowledge base to help make the buying decision. Consumers might fill in their personal knowledge gaps by talking with friends, family, or a salesperson. Perhaps the most common sources of external information these days are online search engines such as Google or Yelp or TripAdvisor. So you go out from your memory zone and seek for information to fill in your personal knowledge gaps by talking to your social circle or looking from internet. The figure on the slide 9.4 amount of information search into product knowledge shows us that there is an inverted U relationship between knowledge and external search effort. People with very limited expertise may not feel they are competent to search extensively. Experts have a better sense of what information is relevant, so they engage in selective search. Novice consumers tend to process information in terms of the big picture instead of detailed information. So, who searches the most? Moderately knowledgeable consumers searches the most. Stage 3 is evaluation of alternatives. Once a consumer has recognized a problem and explored the possible options, he or she must go through the choices available and evaluate the alternatives. Research has shown that a consumer's mind organizes and categorizes alternatives to help his or her decision process. Universal sets include all possible choices for a product category, but because it would be unwieldy for a person to recall all possible alternatives for every purchase decision, marketers tend to focus on only a subset of choices. One important subset is retrieval sets, which are those brands and stores that can be readily brought forth from memory. Another is a consumer's evoked set, which comprises the alternative brand and stores that the consumer states he or she would consider when making a purchase decision. If a company can get its brand or store into a consumer's evoked set, it has increased the likelihood of purchase and therefore reduced search time because the consumer will think specifically of that brand when considering choices. Let's look at the example. Let's say my smartphone is broken and I need to buy a new smartphone. The smartphone brands that comes to my mind are iPhone and Samsung. Then I ask to you and I ask you to give me some suggestions on smartphones. Tell me what other smartphone brands are in the market. You come up with Google, Motorola, LG, Lenovo, Huawei. The options that we have here in the red circle is our universal set. All the options available when I'm looking to buy a smartphone. These universal sets are a result of both internal and external search for information because I used my memory, which was my internal search for information, and I asked to you guys to tell me other brands, which is external search for information. As I said, iPhone and Samsung were the two brands that came to my mind that I brought forth from my memory. So iPhone and Samsung is my retrieval set. It depends on my internal search for information. It is the result of my memory when it comes to smartphone brands. iPhone is the only brand that I would consider to buy when it comes to purchase. Therefore, iPhone is the only brand in my evoked set. So Apple is my winner. Since I only have one brand in my evoked set, which is iPhone, that means that I am very brand loyal to Apple and I have brand loyalty towards iPhone because there is no other brands that can confuse my mind when it comes to buying a smartphone. Let's say you are different and you have both iPhone and Samsung in your Revoked set, then how you are going to decide which one to choose? How you are going to make your purchase decision between Samsung and iPhone? We use either a multi-attribute method, evaluate brands by product performance and brand features, or which means that in this model we use a weighted average score based on the importance of various attributes and performance on those issues, or we use likability. The consumer chooses the product he feels best about based on previous experience or an emotional bond with the brand. So likability is more emotion based, while multi-attribute method is based on collection of attributes or characteristics, so it is more factual. You make a pros and cons list and decide based on the product performance and brand features which one is more suitable to you. After evaluating the alternatives, customers are ready to buy. However, they don't always patronize the store or purchase the brand or item on which they had originally decided. When it comes to purchase decision, we face with different things. For example, a consumer might choose the best product that comes with multiple features, but at the end of the day, last minute, he or she can change his mind because of the feature creep. Feature creep is the complexity of features that products provide. Feature creep is the excessive ongoing expansion or addition of new features in a product, especially in computer software, video games, and consumer business electronics. We see this feature creep happening. Again, this is the excessive features to a electronic, to a hardware, to a software that cause the product to become complicated and difficult to use. Rather than improving the product, the extra features end up diminishing usability and your product suddenly loses its first purpose. This is also called feature fatigue, and we know that customers don't actually enjoy having tons of features. That's why, although on the paper your product seems the best because of all the features that you provide, last minute consumers may change their mind and decide to buy a simplistic version of the product that serves the purpose. Let's talk about online decision making. A cybermediary often is the answer when it comes to online decision making. This term describes a website or an app that helps to filter and organize online market information so that consumers can identify and evaluate alternatives more efficiently. The second term is intelligent agents. Intelligent agents are sophisticated software programs that use collaborative filtering technologies to learn from past user behavior and to recommend new purchases. Remember my Amazon recommendation example or Netflix what you would like to watch next example. These are all intelligent agents. Search engine optimization refers to the procedures companies use to design the content of websites and posts to maximize the likelihood that their content will show up when someone searches for a relevant term. All the first 10 pages that Google shows us have very good search engine optimizations with keywords, so those companies, when we make a search, comes in the list of first 10 in the first page, because very frequently and usually we as consumers don't want to go to the second page when we make a Google search because our trust declines. The reliability of the second, third, or the 10th pages on Google is less than the first page. That's why it's very important for companies to have a very good search engine optimization. And lastly, long tail. Long tail is that we no longer need to rely solely on big hits such as blockbuster movies or best-selling books to find profits. The final step of consumer decision process is post-purchase behavior. Marketers are particularly interested in post-purchase behavior because it entails actual rather than potential customers. Satisfied customers who marketers hope to create become loyal, purchase again, and spread positive word of mouth. So they are quite important for us. There are two possible post purchase outcomes: customer satisfaction and customer dissatisfaction. I will explain their impact on branding in my following slides. Marketers can take several steps to ensure post purchase satisfaction. Setting unrealistically high consumer expectations of the product through advertising, personal selling, or other types of promotion may lead to higher initial sales, but it eventually will result in dissatisfaction if the product fails to achieve high performance expectations. That's why marketers should build realistic expectations, not too high and not too low. They should demonstrate correct product use because improper usage can cause dissatisfaction. Marketers should stand behind the product or service by providing money back guarantees and warranties. And marketers should encourage customer feedback to know customer dissatisfaction reasons and to give them a proper apology, or they have, and marketers should also make up if the product or service fails and creates complaints. But in order to know that, they need to have a customer feedback department or customer feedback platform. Marketing is all about understanding consumers' behavior, needs, and motivations, and then delivering an experience that aligns with all those points. This means that marketers who have a solid understanding of consumer behavior and psychology are typically going to be the most effective at creating strong customer centric campaigns. Neuromarketing takes this concept to a whole new level as it allows you to create marketing materials that resonate with your audience from a cognitive place. Neuromarketing is essentially designing marketing materials, including your website, advertising, email campaigns, and social media content, to evoke specific neurological reactions that trigger emotions or responses that are linked to purchasing. Neuromarketing uses functional magnetic resonance imaging, or it's called fMRI, a brain scanning device that tracks blood flow as we perform mental tasks to take an up close look at how our brains respond to marketing messages and product design features. Also, it is used for problems with rating and choosing and in post purchase evaluation. For example, Starbucks used neuromarketing to decide the optimal pricing for their one cup of coffee, and how the brain reacts to different pricing suggestions for a small cup of Starbucks coffee is actually set the Starbucks coffee's price today. The highest brain activity is measured at 2.40 euros, suggesting that this price is the best for the product. When it goes to 9.9, it's too expensive. When it is 10 cents, it is too cheap. When evaluating alternatives, consumers may focus on one or two product features while ignoring others. This helps us as consumers narrow down our options. Evaluative criteria are the dimensions we use to judge the merits of competing options. Determinant attributes are the features that we actually use to differentiate among our choices. Marketers often educate consumers about which criteria they should use as determinant attributes. On table 9.1 on the slide, it shows hypothetical alternatives for a TV set. Brand ratings attributes are 1 to 6 according to their importance ranking. The most important thing is the size of a screen, then the stereo broadcast capability. The third one is brand reputation. Fourth, on screen programming. The fifth one, cable ready capability. And the sixth importance ranking is sleep timer. And according to that, the table compares the alternatives. Although companies want satisfied, loyal customers, sometimes they fail to attain them. Passive consumers are those who don't repeat purchase or recommend the product to others, but they don't come to your store again. They don't talk to others about their dissatisfaction or frustration. They don't come and buy from your store again. So they are the silent, neutral consumers who boycott your store or brand by not repeating purchases, but also they are not talking about their dissatisfaction. More serious and potentially damaging consumers is the negative consumer behavior, such the ones with a negative experience who spread negative word of mouth and rumors. Negative word of mouth occurs when consumers spread negative information about a product, service, or store to others. The internet has provided an effective method of spreading negative word of mouth to millions of people instantaneously through personal blogs, Twitter, LinkedIn, or even corporate websites. We have to prioritize complaining customers because one unhappy customer tells between 9 to 15 people about their negative experience according to McKinsey's report. So negative word of mouth spreads like wildfire. So we have to be careful and we have to make this customer happy again. Habitual decision making describes the choices we make with little or no conscious effort. Many purchase decisions are so routine that we may not realize we have made them until we look in our shopping carts. When a person buys the same brand over and over, does this mean it's just a habit or is he or she truly loyal to that product? The answer is it depends. In some cases, the explanation really is just inertia, which means that it involves less effort to throw a familiar package into the shopping cart. And in some cases, it is brand loyalty, but brand loyalty is totally a different story. Brand loyalty describes a pattern of repeat purchasing behavior that involves a conscious decision to continue buying the same brand because there is a connection with the brand that goes beyond the offer. On the other hand, as I said, inertia is optimizing the barrier to exit because it is familiar, because it is too much trouble to go somewhere else to try a new product, to experience a new product. You keep buying the same brand over and over. However, you don't have a personal connection with the brand when you have an inertial loyalty. On the other hand, when you have true brand loyalty, because the brand optimizes your experience, you have a connection with the brand. We have seen that many habitual decisions we make are subject to mental accounting biases. In addition, we often fall back on other shortcuts to simplify our choices. For example, uh, when we believe that higher price products are higher quality products, we refer to the shortcuts that we call heuristics. These mental rule of thumb range from the general to the more specific. More general, as I said, more general heuristics are the higher price products are higher quality products, or buy the same brand I bought last time. But more specific heuristics are by Domino, the brand of sugar my mother always used idea. Then this in the slide, I listed a set of market beliefs that many of us share. Let's summarize a few of the most prevalent heuristics we commonly use. Covariation infers hidden dimensions of products from attributes we observe. The signal communicates an underlying quality. For instance, someone selling a used car will try to make the car look clean because cleanliness may be associated with reliability. Secondly, country of origin. Country of origin is often a determinant attribute in the decision making process. For example, consumers think of Switzerland for precision in watches, Italy for leather goods, and France for wine. As you see in the example, there is a shoe company. A Dutch shoe advertising reminds us that a product's address matters because the slogan on the advertising is made from fine Italian canvas. Thirdly, familiar brand names. Familiar brand names can serve as a shortcut, also as higher prices, which consumers may assume suggest higher quality, which probably we all have in mind that higher quality comes with higher price. Now that we covered the cognitive decision making process, which is a consumer's decision making journey, in this section we will talk about collective decision making. We will examine collective decision making situations in which more than one person chooses the products and services that multiple consumers use. First, we will look at organizational decision making, in which multiple employees select goods or services on behalf of a larger group. And then we will focus more specifically on one of the most important organizations to which we belong, the family unit. We will consider how members of a family negotiate among themselves and how important changes in modern family structure affect this process. Let's look at the roles in collective decision making. Depending on the decision in question, the choice may include some or all of group members, and the different group members may play different roles. The initiator's role is played by the person who brings up the idea or identifies the need. The initiator first suggests buying the particular product or service. The person who tries to sway the outcome of the decision is the influencer. The influencer's view influence other members of the buying center in making the final decision. The decider is the person who determines any part of or the entire buying decision, whether to buy, what to buy, how to buy, or where to buy. The person who actually makes the purchase and who handles the paperwork of the actual purchase is the buyer. Those who will actually use the product are the users. So the person who consumes or uses the product or service purchased by the buying center is the user. And the person who conducts the information search and controls the flow of information available to the group is the gatekeeper. So, in this example, the initiator is the doctor, is your doctor who recognizes a problem and comes up with an idea to buy a new additional product for the hospital. The influencer who influences the decision of which brand or product to go with, who influences the initiator. The doctor is the medical device supplier or the pharmacy, in this case, whatever the product is, either it's a medicine or a medical device. The decider is the hospital because the hospital is going to buy the product to as an asset to the hospital. The buyer is the hospital's material manager or buying manager. The user at the end of the day, who's going to use the medicine or the medical device, is the patient. And the gatekeeper is the insurance company, because in order to for the patient to use the medical device or to get the medicine, the insurance company needs to approve. So the gatekeeper is the insurance company who's gonna pay for the patient. Organizational buyers have a lot of responsibility. These individuals buy from B2B marketers. Organizational buyers purchase goods and services on behalf of companies for use in the process of manufacturing, distribution, or resale. And business to business marketers specialize in meeting needs of organizations such as corporations, government agencies, hospitals, and retailers. Although there are similarities between consumer and organizational buying, there are some also key differences. On the slides, these differences are listed. Compared to consumer decision making, organizational decision making, which is also can be called collective decision making, involves many people, requires precise technical specifications. It is based on past experience and careful weighing of alternatives. It may require risky decisions, involve substantial dollar value because it is bought for the organizational, so it's usually in high volumes, and it places more emphasis on personal selling. So professional sellers, professional selling techniques are important in organizational decision making. When we apply the buy class theory of purchasing, we divide organizational buying decisions into three types, ranging from least to most complex. How much cognitive effort goes into making a decision affects what type of decision the buyer is making. The three basic types of decisions are straight rebuy, modified rebuy, and new task. The straight rebuy is a habitual decision. A modified rebuy involves limited decision making, and a new task involves extensive problem solving because the company has not made a similar decision already. On the table 9.3, you see the extent of effort it needs for each buying situation, the risk it comes with, and the buyer's involvement. So with straight rebuy, it's a habitual decision making with a low risk, and there is an automatic reorder. Modifier rebuy is needs limited problem solving, and the risk is low to moderate, and the buyer's involvement is one or a few. When there is a new task, the extent of effort needed is extensive problem solving, so too much information search, too much effort, because the risk of purchase is high, and many buyers are involved in the decision. So again, when we look when there is a new task, the purchase of a good or service is done for the first time. That's why it needs to involve many buyers, many decision makers. When there is a modified rebuy, the buyer has purchased a similar product in the past but has decided to change some specifications such as the desired price, quality level, customer service level, or options, or whatever it is. With a straight rate buyer or buying organization simply buys additional units of products that have previously been purchased, so the complexity level is low and the risk is low, and one buyer is enough because it is habitual decision making due to past experience with the buying. Now, the family decision making. Families make two types of decisions: consensual and accommodative. Consensual purchase decisions are those for which members agree on the desired purchase, differing only in terms of how it will be achieved. Accommodative purchase decisions are those for which members have different preferences or priorities, and they cannot agree on a purchase to satisfy the minimum expectations of all involved. So, consensual purchase decisions means that agreement on purchase, but not necessarily on the details. And accommodative purchase decision means that family members differ preferences and priorities, prevent the coming to an agreement, and may lead to a household conflict. Decisions involve conflict among family members to the extent that the issue is important or unusual, or if individuals have strong opinions about alternatives. The degree to which these factors generate conflict determines the type of decision the family will make, whether that be a consensual agreement or an accommodative agreement. The factors that determine how much conflict there will be include interpersonal need, product involvement and utility, responsibility, and power. Interpersonal need refers to the level of involvement of a person in the group. Product involvement and utility refers to the degree to which a person will use the product to satisfy a need. Responsibility refers to the person who has responsibility for procurement, maintenance, payment, and so on. And power refers to the degree to which one family member exerts influence over the others. Let's also discuss who makes key decisions in the family. Autonomic decision means that one family member chooses a product. Syncretic decision means that it involves both partners in choosing a product. It is all usually used for cars, vacations, homes, appliances, furniture, home electronics, interior design, and phone service. As education increases, so does syncretic decision making increases within families. When couples first marry, they tend to make more joint decisions. They tend to make syncretic decisions, but over time they begin to specialize in decisions. Wives still have the most say on grocery purchases, clothes, furniture, home electronics, and things for children. In traditional views of family, men made the money and women spend it. Today, it is primarily the woman who manages the role of family financial officer, whether or not she is a primary breadwinner. Marketers are also aware of the tendency for working mothers to struggle with a juggling lifestyle. In this chapter, we focused on 5 learning objectives. We learned the 3 categories of consumer decision making, which are cognitive, habitual, and affective. We learned the stages in the cognitive decision making process, and we learned the outcome of series of stages that result in the selection of one product over competing options. We learned the way information about a product choice is framed can prime a decision even when the consumer is unaware of this influence. We discussed the decision-making process differs when people choose what to buy on behalf of an organization rather than for personal use. And we learned the members of a family unit play different roles and have different amounts of influence when the family makes purchase decisions. If you have any questions about this chapter, please email me your questions.